Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. A major effort is on to stabilize the island's foreign exchange position. This from Finance Minister Chris Sinclair during a press conference to discuss the state of the economy at government headquarters. He also reiterated there will be no devaluation of the Barbados dollar. Lisa Broom tells us more.
Finance Minister Chris Sinclair has announced 3 main planks on which the island's foreign exchange position will be bolstered. Among them, the first tranche of the loan to get the Sam Lords Castle rebuilding project off the ground. He says the approvals have been sent over from the China Export-Import Bank to the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc.
Similarly, all documentation to facilitate the release of the First Citizens Bridging Loan for the CAF-sponsored upgrades of Customs and BRA is settled, and that too will be released in the coming days. And of course, we all know that very soon the FTC will give its decision regarding the sale of BNTCL to Sol Limited, which, if positive, and I have see no reason why it shouldn't be, will clear the way for a significant injection into the country's reserves.
That injection, according to the Finance Minister, will amount to about $200 million and will push the foreign reserves levels well above the 12 weeks of import cover considered best practice. Mr. Sinclair also announced some short-term initiatives as well.
Already, we have approved status on the CAF-funded Barbados Water Authority Water Master Plan project for $30 million. We also cleared the way for an additional $50 million from the Caribbean Development Bank project, which is related to the education sector enhancement part 2. Then there is the Caribbean Development Bank's water project systems upgrade for the Barbados Water Authority, which equally is expected to bring in at least $35 million.
The Finance Minister told the press some key guidelines have been issued and accepted by developers seeking concessionary terms for projects.
Effective from this month, in order for such concessions to be given and sustained, at least 1/3 of all foreign exchange brought on island must be sold to the central bank directly. Further, that on completion of the projects, any foreign sales generated from units within those developments and for which concessions are attached, no less than 50% of the sale proceeds must be brought on shore, and half of this must be sold to the Central Bank of Barbados.
In regards to cutting spending, Mr. Sinclair says work continues on the rationalization of state-owned entities. And while he did not go into detail, he says there's a plan for refinancing government's domestic debt. He says some reputable regional and international entities have already expressed an interest. Lisa Broom, CBC News.
Finance Minister Chris Sinclair says public sector workers deserve an increase, but it has to be affordable in the long run. Since last year, public sector unions have been agitating for salary increases for thousands of government workers. The National Union of Public Workers has put forward a request for 23%, while the Barbados Workers Union is asking for 12%. Workers have not had an increase since 2009.
I don't know what is worse, not giving a salary, which is worse, not giving a salary increase or giving a salary increase that you know you cannot sustainably pay. And then the time comes that somebody goes to the bank and the salary which you promised to give them for the work which they were going to do, they can't get it. So these are very deep and serious issues that we have to address, and I say, as I always say, it will rest on the factual information.
Government is continuing to create the necessary framework for productivity to thrive in all local sectors. Word of this from Prime Minister and champion of productivity, Frundle Stewart, during day 1 of the Week of Excellence at the Central Bank's Grand Salle. Highlighting the connection between good standards and habits, he says while government continues to play an important role in influencing productivity, the onus is on Barbadians to deliver.
In any task or job, whether that of messenger or CEO, fishboner or IT specialist, or whether producing a good or service or doing an administrative job, a commitment to excellence requires a personal engagement with the job a personal understanding of the importance of what one does to the good of the nation, personal interest in improving the lot of the nation, and by extension that of the family.
The newly appointed acting governor of the central bank, Cleviston Haynes, is renewing the bank's commitment to the social partnership. He made the comment during the launch of this year's Week of Excellence. In his first public address since last Friday's firing of his predecessor, Dr. Delal Worrell, Mr. Haynes says the strengthening of the social partnership will be critical in rescuing the country from recession.
The social partnership has contributed to the relative calm that has characterized the industrial relations landscape in Barbados and has helped to maintain the social consensus. In these challenging times, therefore, I believe that there remains a role for the social partnership, and let me assure you that the leadership of the bank, in its continued pursuit of excellence, is committed to active collaboration with you.
An appeal is being made for local businesses trying to improve productivity to adapt to the changing times. At the same time, Barbadians have been responding to the issue, including the concerns about absenteeism in the workplace. Kareem Smith reports.
As Barbados launches the Week of Excellence 2017, the focus of local businesses should be on efficiency instead of actual hours spent in the workplace. This is the view of Chief Program Manager at the Barbados Productivity Council, Anthony Sobers. He made the comments after reports surfaced that businesses were being severely affected by poor attendance because of sick leave. He indicated that in about 70% of those cases, Barbadians weren't actually sick. In addition, the report stated Barbadians are often attending to other business and escaping high anxiety and stress in the workplace when they refuse to clock in. When asked more recently if the new findings could be blamed on laziness or an overwhelming workload, Mr. Sobers disagreed. However, he thinks businesses need to restructure in such a way that workers can have increased flexibility.
Culturally, we have been allowed, or accustomed is a better word, to seeing people physically on the job. Because we look at productivity, we have measures, we have systems and applications. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on the job to do a very efficient, effective job. But it will take some change of thinking, some change of culture.
When compared with other countries like Russia, Poland and Latvia, Barbados' 35 to 40-hour working week is about average. However, countries like Germany and the Netherlands have a working week of between 25 and 30 hours with significant amounts of free time, which research suggests doesn't seem to be negatively impacting their economies. We asked Barbadians to weigh in on the issue.
I'm using the system.
You can't really tell how a person feels, so that's a ticklish situation.
You got to be really sick or not even drastic action, you understand? Because truthfully, you understand, if you don't want the job, so you don't want the job, or just quit.
It's a problem, it's a serious problem. I know people I work with done it already. But I never did it. I only called them when I was sick.
Another major problem confronting the local workplace is the aging population and the retirement age of just under 67 years. Mr. Sobers says more must be done to ensure workers can cope with remaining in the workforce at such an old age. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
There are employers who have issues with employees and also workers who have differences with their bosses. Regardless of the concerns, both sides are being reminded that the Labor Department is there to settle disputes and grievances. Here's Kishmar Sinjus.
Acting Chief Labour Officer Victor Felix says the role of that department is very much the same as it was when it was established. During a Labour Management Relations seminar, he stated that the Labour Department is not interested in fights or promoting discord.
We are interested in seeking how we can resolve issues in the workplace, given that it is recognized that where persons come together in the workplace, that issues will arise. We can't get away from that. Issues will arise, and the challenge for us is finding the most way that is appropriate, that can possibly end with a win-win solution.
Mr. Felix also reminded that Barbados maintains a good reputation on the world stage with respect to labor standards.
As a jurisdiction that does not cut on labor standards, that we value the guidance and seek to follow the conventions and recommendations of the International Labour Organization, and that we want to be among the countries of the world that are seen as following good and acceptable labour standards.
The seminar attracted human resource and payroll officials from across the public service. Kishma Senjis, CBC News.
And over the next few days, special emphasis will be placed on improving productivity across the island as the social partnership celebrates that Week of Excellence. Trade unionist Orlando Gabby Scott says the week was conceptualized 14 years ago to help the country as it struggled to compete with more developed nations due to increasing globalization.
It was widely felt that there was an increased need for productivity-focused businesses and that effective competitiveness strategies were an actual requirement in light of the new market liberalization thrust that had come hand in hand with the globalization phenomenon. The Week of Excellence program emerged in this context with the purpose of developing a wide-reaching initiative that will assist individual organizations and entire sectors and industries in crafting a strategic response to such challenges.
Mr. Scott was speaking at a church service to mark the beginning of the week of activities at the St. Michael's Cathedral. It was attended by Labour Minister Dr. Esther Bayer-Suku, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office Senator Darcy Boyce, and representatives from the entities which make up the social partnership. Under the theme Improving Public Sector Productivity, Awareness, Initiative and Actioning, the week-long observance will include discussions on several topics in the coming days, including the National Workplace Wellness Policy, customer service and the youth. Dean of the St. Michael's Cathedral, Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Gibson, commended the social partners for their continued cooperation despite the challenging times.
Let me also congratulate the social partners for sustaining their relationship through the years and for celebrating the achievements year by year in this particular type of celebration, dedicating a week to affirm the dignity of human labor and to celebrate all the related achievements.
Some Barbadians are at this minute experiencing water outages in select areas across the island. That's as a result of Barbados Water Authority upgrades made to the Bell pumping station in St. Michael today. Before any work could begin, the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited shut down the electricity. Project engineer for energy efficiency and renewable energy at the Barbados Water Authority, Nathan Hart, introduced CBC to the team charged with carrying out the upgrades. He explained the purpose of the shutdown was to install a new breaker to replace one that is over 50 years old. This is good news for the consumer. As he explained, it's part of a process to change the new VFD equipment that will stabilize water costs.
It is going to take about an hour to hour and a half to install that, but one of the reasons we said 6 o'clock, Shane, or 8 o'clock, or give us a buffering period, that when we enter into this system, which is archaic, is that we find any difficulty, what we have a buffering time in order to rectify it.
When the upgrades are completed, the BWA will be able to carry out work more efficiently.
In order to install these VFDs, they're going to be intermittent shutdowns within the station. So what we need to do is to be able to have functionality to come and lock off the station. Currently, with the existing system, we cannot do that. So with the application of these industrial breakers, they're not simple, but these are high amperage breakers. I'm talking about in the range of 800 amps to 1600 amps. It would allow us to have functionality without sometimes calling
calling the Barbados Light and Power to assist us to terminate the station at intervals and install these particular VFDs right now.
Water should be restored around 8 o'clock tonight. Barbados' efforts to make early weather and disaster predictions have been boosted thanks to a low-cost technological early warning weather station developed by the U.S.-based National Center for Atmospheric Research. The station is housed at the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology. It performs several functions including measuring rainfall, solar radiation, humidity, wind speed and direction, temperature and humidity. Project scientist Dr. Paul Kucera says the aim is to have similar stations placed across the region.
This station costs about $200 to make, whereas a commercial weather station that you would buy from the U.S. or Europe or something would cost on the order of $10,000. So for a very low cost, you now can have weather observations in a lot of places that you can't have before. We've been doing this in Africa, in underdeveloped countries in Africa, and now we're working and focusing on the Caribbean islands to expand that capacity in this region.
The United States International Revenue Service, or IRS, is helping Barbados boost its ability to fight white-collar crime. This is through the U.S. Embassy, which, along with the Barbados Revenue Authority, officially launched the Financial Investigative Techniques Training Program. Revenue Commissioner Margaret Sivers says fighting tax evasion is a necessary measure, especially as local revenue agencies feel the rising pressure of economic challenges. She thanked the embassy for its help, adding that ordinary investigative tools cannot be used to deal with money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and other types of white-collar crime.
Sophistication and, in most cases, legal schemes used to evade and avoid the paying of taxes demand the use of financial and analytical capability by investigators capable of wading through complex paper and computerized financial records to enable them to follow the funds.
U.S. Ambassador to Barbados Linda Tagliatella says the BRA, along with the Royal Barbados Police Force, the Customs Department, and the Office of the Attorney General will benefit from the one-week course.
To do this, the course will cover such topics as evidence gathering and analysis, interviewing, preparation for courtroom activities, and participation in an in-depth practical exercise. This instruction will be carried out by the United States Department of Treasury's Internal Revenue Service through its National Crime Investigative Training Academy with the assistance of the U.S. Embassy's International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Section.
There is another appeal by police for assistance in locating two men wanted for questioning in connection with two separate serious criminal matters. There are Ronald Rahim Rudder of last known address, First Avenue, Gills Gap, Eagle Hall, and Marlon Omar George of Arden Close, Pinelands. Rudder is 22 years old and is about 5 feet 5 inches tall, of slim build, and has a light brown complexion. George, meanwhile, is 31 years old. He is 5 feet 9 inches tall, of medium build, of light brown complexion, has brown staring eyes, and carries a low haircut. He also has several scars on his face. The two wanted men are again being advised they can present themselves to the police accompanied by an attorney at law of their choice. Any person who may know the whereabouts of Rudder and George is asked to contact police at emergency telephone number 211, Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIPS, that's 1-800-8477, or the nearest police station. Barbadians should know more about African history than just slavery. This is the view of Reverend Thelma Gill Barnett. She intends to mount mobile African displays in communities around the island beyond Black History Month. The first exhibition showcasing African literature, fashion, history, and Barbadian scientists and their contributions has been mounted in Oistins. Reverend Gill Barnett told CBC a bit more about the initiative.
We are hoping that every Thursday or every second Thursday in the month that we were going to be doing something on our history within this community. Just as we have Q in the community, we want to have history in the community.
Her assistant Janet Trotman believes more positive elements of African history should be taught in schools.
We do this display at schools. We've done it at Princess Margaret Secondary. We did it at Harrison College last week. And the response is excellent. I find the children are very interested and they have actually embraced it, especially when they're allowed to dress in their African wear. I find they embrace it even more. It's more impactful than.
The Ministry of Sports, Youth and Culture was transformed into a cultural extravaganza when it hosted the Pan-African Coalition of Organizations in Barbados in recognition of African Awareness Month. Songs, dances, poetry, quizzes, all depicting and symbolizing African heritage were on display at the Culture Ministry as African Awareness Month comes to an end. Chairperson of PACO, Reverend Ongfer Wells, stressed that culture should be known and respected as he believes it is the foundation of all aspects of life.
Whether it be religion, governance, family relationships, work relationships, everything must have a culture that makes it unique, that holds it together, that creates perpetuity, that gives you an identity in time and in time beyond. But for a colonial people, a people coming out of slavery, more than anything else, culture is resistance.
Culture Minister Stephen Lashley says the celebrations create a cultural consciousness in Barbados.
The whole question of reinforcing the African identity to Barbadians and how we use that to empower our people is perhaps the most profound thing that I believe we can take away every year, that we use these events to reinforce in the minds of our people their identity.
Minister Lashley says the awareness goes beyond just wearing clothes, adding that knowing one's identity is a tool for social upliftment.
We are yet to complete the journey of reinforcing our African identity, using it at a time when we have really been the victims of cultural penetration in so many ways. It has become even much more subtle now as we get into the more advanced age of technology. And while technology has been good, without reinforcement in terms of cultural education, without identity reinforcement, then most people who are not sufficiently prepared will actually fall victims to cultural penetration.
The celebrations come to an end on Tuesday.